Hello there, everybody. Good day to you guys. Welcome back to the channel. Glad you guys are here. This video is going to be a little difficult for me. I've got this, I think it's a 2017, I think it's a Jeep Wrangler, 3.6 liter. It's a Sahara Limited. And I just got this thing back from the dealership. I'll tell you why I sent it over there in a little while. But I think I was ripped off very blatantly by the dealership. I think. I'm not entirely certain yet, and I'm fact-finding to try to prove it. And I'll tell you what I've done so far to come up with that. I may have misdiagnosed this car, but I also may have been ripped off and my diagnosis was right, but now I'm second-guessing everything, and I'm having to start all over again. So I want to make the video just so I can maybe collect some collective knowledge from some people out there in the ether. Maybe you can help me out with some information on this. So this Jeep right here came in to me about 10 days ago. The customer states they had put a new battery in and the battery continues to die. So we did a battery draw test and found, I think, like a 450 milliamp draw. Now you can see here, this is all taken apart. The dash is ripped out of it everywhere. Instrument cluster is disconnected, all that good stuff. So let me get this plugged in. I don't think it'll start without the cluster connected, or it wasn't acting right. We tried to move it out with the cluster disconnected yesterday and it wouldn't function. So here, let's fire this thing up real quick. This particular Jeep, she's got 70,843 miles on the odometer, and this is a new instrument cluster. I had sent this over to the dealership because when I called parts, how do I open the windows? Oh, the switches are disconnected. Okay, I can't open the windows. I called the dealership for some parts on this unit, and because I had diagnosed it as needing an instrument cluster for the battery drain. We're going to prove out why I thought that before we get started, or as we get started, or after we get started. We're going to go and prove that out. Yeah, there we go, words. But I had sent this thing off to the dealership to have this replaced, because when we called them up, they said that this module had to be programmed, and I do not have capability of programming Chryslers. I can utilize remote access programming for modules. However, it was going to juice the cost up for the customer, so I figured it would be more cost effective to not service this vehicle here and to just go ahead and send it to the dealership and just let them make the repair. So we called them up, verified that they had the part available. It was a couple of days out on the order, and told them we just needed to have the instrument cluster installed for a battery draw and have it programmed, and that was that. Now, when we called them, they said, hey, it'll be here, the part will be here in 5 days. That's going to be next week, which would have been Wednesday of this week. Now, they called me up Monday of this week and said the car was already done, and we had dropped it off, I believe, on a Thursday the week prior. So if they had placed the order on a Thursday or even a Friday, they should not have had it if it was a 3 to 5 day wait by Monday. So I already found that peculiar. Now, things like that can turn around. You can have a part that's 4 days out and all of a sudden it shows up tomorrow. Those things do occur, but it's not super common. So we had sent it to the dealership, told them to install the part and program it and just give it back in a ready to rock and roll condition. I wanted to give it back to my customer, right? And they called me earlier this week, said the car was done. We went down there, picked it up, drove it here, we parked it, and then the next morning, battery was dead as a doornail. Now, the dealership was not responsible for diagnosing this. I called them up, said install the parts. So we operated off of my diag, which means they never would have verified the repair, which is totally understandable. Since the battery was dead the next morning, I speculated that the thing had sat in their parking lot. They got the part in, they went out with a jumper box, started it up, drove it in, changed the part, backed it out, and that was that, which means that battery never would have been able to receive a charge during a short amount of runtime. And I could understand why the battery was still dead. So we charged it back up one more time again the next morning, stone cold dead, and had like 2 volts in the thing, okay? So I knew that whatever was pulling this battery down was still there, even though we had a new instrument cluster up there in the dash. Is that making sense so far? So, me thinking we had a misdiagnosis on our hands, I started over one more time and began to re-diagnose the vehicle. And that's what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna get the multimeter out and we're gonna view this vehicle and see what the amp draw is. Basically, we're gonna hook the meter up in between this post here and the cable right here, and that meter is going to tell us exactly how much current up to 10 amps is flowing through this circuit that the meter will be connected within. And we're gonna go back inside and I'm gonna show you guys what led me to believe that it was the instrument cluster that was the problem. So I've got the meter sitting down here. We're connected for amps, and like I said, we're gonna hook this thing up in line. I stuck a temporary post on here so we could connect to something. Did you guys see that arc? Look at there, 780 milliamps is what we're drawing. The realistic draw for a vehicle at rest should be 150, maybe 200 milliamps. Now this is gonna fall because when I plugged this in, it woke up several of the modules in the vehicle. So that reading is going to fall after they start to go to sleep. But we can still go inside and I can show you what I found. Do me a favor, I want to put the windows down on this. Can you just take that connector and touch it to that one so I can run some power through the vehicle? I don't want to run window motors through my amp meter because that'll blow up an amp meter. I plugged in the switches real quick, so we're gonna key this on, get all the windows down. It's hot in here. All right, power off. All right, Troy, you can separate those again. And taking a look at this meter over here. Yep, there's our draw again, 700 milliamps. Let's let that go to sleep real quick and it should drop down to about 400. Now, looking inside here, we can see there's none of the interior illuminators on. The stuff down at the floorboard's not on. The only thing that we have on right here is the dash gauge cluster. And now that the door is shut, it is off. Let's keep an eye on that draw. Yeah, 700 milliamps. That's almost one full amp. That's a lot of power. Give it a second. There we go. We're dropping down some. So one little module has just gone to sleep. Waiting. Running out of patience. We'll be back when it drops. So it looks like today we're running at 685 milliamps. That's where our draw is going to land today. It's been at 4, but now it's at 6. So here's where I concluded that we had an instrument cluster draw. Start disconnecting things. Still 680, okay? These are data communication lines, I believe. These are information lines for the gauges. Still 660 amps. So these are not outputs, these are inputs. These are power right here. It's power and grounds and some other wires. I don't know all of them specifically. We unplug this guy. Look at there, down at 200 milliamps. So this thing has over a half an amp draw. Plug it back in. 700, 800, 600, see that? Unplug it, drops right back down. That right there is an acceptable amount of draw. And even that's still a little high, but this is an astronomical amount of draw coming out of this guy right here. So now we're gonna get to the part about where I think I got ripped off. So based on this diagnosis right here, and we had conducted this diag in conjunction with disconnecting other components that were on the circuit. There are some other modules that do communicate with this. Those have been disconnected. Everything on the fuse, there's a 30 amp fuse and a 20 amp fuse in there. There's the 30 that powers a couple legs, and there's a 20 below it that powers a couple more legs. The 30 does also power the 20. So both of those fuses are responsible for carrying the current for this battery drain. And with those guys disconnected, and with this connected, we had no battery drain. So everything on those two specific fuses under the hood has been isolated to this right here. The other components did not show a draw effect on the vehicle, so we did not really didn't pay any attention to those because those did not seem to be the problem. So based on what we just went through, the short version, I called up the dealership because I was going to install one of these, and they told me it's kind of a PITA to program. So like I said earlier, I let them just go ahead and do the job, and we moved on with our life. It was pretty straightforward, and I wasn't even going to make a video about it because it was, you know, just battery draw. So when I got the vehicle back and I saw that the draw was still there, I started second guessing my own diagnostics. So I did the same thing again, called a couple people, watched a few videos, restudied the diagrams, and I concluded that this component was responsible for the battery drain. So while it was apart, I was thinking, well, we didn't get a replacement unit that was bad. Either I misdiagnosed it, or what else could be the problem here? And after I had removed this thing, what I noticed is it didn't really look like a new part to me. Look at here. We got some tabs that are broken off. See that? We have some more tabs on this that have been pried apart with a screwdriver. Let me show you this right here. And bear with me if we get shaky because I'm zoomed in a lot, but you see this tab right here? This tab is part of a series of other tabs that holds this black section to the cover back here. And this had been disassembled and taken apart with a pocket screwdriver. See this right here? You slip that pocket driver in, and we have perfect indentations for prying on this. See that? To try to open this thing up. There's indentations here. There's another one right here on this tab right there. See that one? That tab has a similar indentation on it. This tab has damage to it from being pried on, and this tab right here also has damage on it from being pried on. See that? This one doesn't. The ones at the bottom do not, because once you get these top ones off, the thing will hinge outward and it's a lot easier to disconnect. Oh, look at these ones. These are good ones here. Look at that one. That one fits a pocket driver perfectly. See that? And same thing with this one right here. Fits that pocket driver perfectly to disengage those tabs. So I said, that's a little peculiar. I wonder why this new unit that I just got has broken tabs, and I don't see the shiny sticker. There's usually like a shiny reflective sticker on these that says they've been remanufactured, and I didn't see that either. So with these tabs being damaged and that tab being broken, I said to myself, maybe someone took this apart and installed a new circuit board on the inside. So I'm gonna take this apart real quick, and we're gonna check that circuit board on the interior of this. So when I got the idea of thinking maybe the new cluster just came with the circuit board inside, and maybe the dealership had to disassemble this in order to change it. So I called up a different dealership that I don't normally do business with. They don't know me. And I acted like I was a shop looking for a part, and I said my normal dealership up here in Bradenton, I said that my normal dealership was not able, or wasn't picking up the phone, or they were busy or something like that. So I said, that's why I'm calling you guys. I need price and availability on an instrument cluster. And I gave them the part number and everything. The part number, that's 5605439 Zulu Alpha Foxtrot. That's our part number. So I called up another dealership's parts department, gave them the part number, and I said, I need price and availability, and I got one question about this. And he said, yeah, what's your question? And I said, when you receive these units, are they showing up as just the circuit board where I'm gonna have to replace the internals, or is it gonna be the complete unit with the plastics and everything? And he said, oh, no. They show up remanufactured with complete units. So I said, oh, remanufactured. That means there's a possibility that these marks could have been made from the remanufacturing process. That's what I said to myself in my head at the moment. So I'm not entirely convinced that the servicing dealership did anything wrong thus far. Is that making sense to you guys? I'm trying to be impartial here. So I took the front of this off, and I was like, well, these were the tabs that were damaged, but that doesn't really explain to me why this would have had to have come off, because the dealership or myself would never have had to take this apart to get a hold of the internals. So that was a dead end, right? So I don't know why they would have taken that apart, but it's been apart. Furthermore, look at here, there's some more marks from a screwdriver prying device. There's marks from a screwdriver prying device. There's one right there. And another one right there. So I thought to myself, maybe the guys that rebuilt this, wherever they rebuild them at, maybe they did this. But I was thinking, you know, I've never seen a remanufactured part come in with screwdriver marks on it, because they have the actual tools and jigs designed to just put this in and make it pop apart with relative ease. So I decided I was going to go ahead and take the back cover off and take a peek at the PCB printed circuit board. Now remember, we have this, oh, punched you guys in the face. We have this broken tab right here. See that one? It's supposed to be just like this tab right here, but that one's busted off. So let's take the back cover off, and that's going to expose our circuit board on the inside, okay? Bear with me here while I gingerly do this. By the way, I'm voiding my warranty that I probably don't have by taking this apart, I'm sure. Especially since I'm recording it and publishing it. Need to produce some pressure. Pop this one off here. Okay. So there's our inside of the back cover. And here's our circuit board. Now this is the reason I called the second dealership. I wanted to ask them if when I receive this component, am I just gonna get this circuit board, which I've got to change it out with the other components, or like I said, does it come as a whole unit? And they said it's a whole entire unit. But I'm looking at this circuit board, and one of the first things I see, that doesn't look new at all. That's, I don't like how that looks right there. The other thing I'm noticing, maybe I can put this down. This is gonna be hard to see, but there's dust and dirt all over this circuit. See that right there? In this whole area here? This does not look remanufactured or new to me. It really doesn't. I'm having a real tough time trying to find a smoking gun because I don't know how long this has been sitting around. But this component looks like it's been in service for a while. Look right here on this connector. It's all dirt. See, I just wiped it off. It's all dirt and debris on this connector. Now, when they go and rebuild these and solder these, this is done in a clean room, which means all this stuff would have been blown out with nitrogen or maybe even just air or CO2 just to get the contaminants out of the area, because you can't reflow and repair and replace soldered on connectors in a contaminated environment. It's like trying to build a transmission inside of a dumpster. You can't do it, it's not gonna work. It's going to absolutely fail if you manage to get it back together. So I'm not exactly convinced that this component right here was replaced by the dealership. In hindsight, I wish I had marked it on the back with a Sharpie or something. I've got to disregard all the fingerprints on this because some of them could be mine. Some of them could have been from the tech that installed it and he just put his hands on it and threw it in there and that was that. But I'm having a difficult time accepting the fact that this is a new or remanufactured part because of the obvious damage to the components and the dirt on the inside, as well as the fact that the car still has a battery drain. So that brings me back to where I started from. Either I misdiagnosed this, or I have to speculate at this point that the dealership down the road collected my $1,400 for the repair and then never actually did the job. I don't know, but I feel like I got ripped off by the Jeep dealership. So we're back in the Jeep and we're still hanging out down here at our 200 milliamps. I'd say that's pretty good, right? We've got the cluster here once again, and I'm gonna plug this guy back in one more time with the back cover removed. And I think this is gonna be hard to do. Set it sideways like this. We're gonna get this guy plugged back in. like so. Let's watch that meter. Plugged in. We just added almost half an amp. It's 400 milliamps that this thing right here is drawing out. Now there's no gauge actuation. There's no lights on this thing. It's just plugged in. The vehicle is still asleep. It does not know that the doors are open because I pushed the latches closed. So the body control module has a signal saying the doors are all closed on it. And we can see right here, look at that. We're still 600 milliamps. So what I'm gonna do, we're gonna let this thing sit here for about 10 minutes and let it just keep drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing. Oh, look at that. I have never seen the draw go away with this thing plugged in. Wow, okay. That was legit the first time I've seen that occur. So that just shoots my plan right in the foot because I wanted to take a laser thermometer, an infrared camera, and I wanted to look at this board with the cover off and see where the heat was at. Let's plug it back in and see if we can't make it happen another time. 6. There's the draw. I hear a buzz coming out of this thing also. I hear something going on. Let's keep an eye on it one more time. That was crazy that draw fell down. But I'm gonna leave this alone. Let's go fire up the thermal imager and see if we can't see any heat starting to form on that circuit board. Basically at this point, I'm now re-diagnosing this in a much more in-depth manner. I'm still almost wondering if I misdiagnosed this and it's actually not this cluster now. There could be something else going on. I'd hate to pick a huge fight with a dealership and then be wrong and then have to put my foot in my mouth. Checking in, we started at 12:31 and it is now 12:38. And our draw is settling at about 440 milliamps. That's where we've been seeing it. And this thing is now holding the draw, okay? So let's kind of recreate everything one more time. Get this thing disconnected here. I'm pushing the button on it, being very gingerly with my, oh, come out of there. I do not want to pry on the board. I don't even want to touch the board because I'm looking for heat out of this board. Here, let's try this. Ding. Okay. That draw just fell down to almost nothing. So now I conclude everything in this vehicle has gone to sleep. There is no other modules on, not even the communication lines. Plug it back in once again. We're seeing our draw. Let's sit here and watch it. Be right back. Give me 10 more minutes. Okie dokes. It's 1:30, so it's been nearly an hour. Look over here. 447 milliamps, right? So I've got the infrared meter back up, and we're gonna look at the back side of this circuit board. Look at there. There's a bunch of heat. There's a bunch of heat. There's a whole bunch of heat up here. So this draw is not really going anywhere. I'll tell you guys that. That's coming right out of this PCB. And the only thing we have here is connector. There's 3 connectors here. There's C1, I think C3, and then, or C1, C2, and then C3 is what's connected. It might be C4, but this is the C1 connector. You can see it's got 6 pins in there that are being utilized. 2 on top, 1 down below it. That orange one, that's 3. 2 black ones, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 pins. Excuse me, 7 pins. And you'll notice these are big cavities and the other 7 pin are the small cavities. So let's go check that connector and make sure that there's not a bus line going through that could be powering something else. I have the diagram already pulled up over here. So you've got the big connectors at the bottom, 4 of those. Oh yeah, there we go. Then 3, 6 more of the smaller ones. That's what that connector looks like. So let's back this up some. And what we have here, fused power. That's for a panel lamp driver that's been disconnected down the line. We did that earlier, and the lamps are not on. There's an output for when you turn the ignition on, and then an input right here from the ignition, another power wire, and then these 3 down here are the grounds. That makes 1 circuit, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 circuits, which is what we counted on the car. So there's no pass-throughs and no outputs on here that should not be actuated at this current point in time. But going back in, we've got a boatload of heat in here. I believe that this unit, oh, look at there, 600 milliamps. I believe this unit is the cause. So let's unplug her one more time. Come out, please. I need a screwdriver. Here, we're just gonna two-hand it again. Come out, there we go. I don't see if that fell right when I unplugged it or not. Let me plug it back in. See, now we're 145 milliamps. Plugging it in one more time. And right back up with nothing else connected. I am of the opinion, or I'm beginning to lean towards the opinion, that this instrument cluster was not changed from the dealership. I think my diag is accurate, unless I'm really missing something that I'm completely unaware of on these clusters, these Chryslers, but I believe that this is evidence that that right there is the drain on the battery. And like you guys saw, I had this thing disconnected when we came out and the thing fired right up. But at those kind of, oh, look at that. Look. That's what we want. Oh, regardless, this thing fired back up when we had that cluster disconnected, which tells me I'm about 95% sure that that's the problem. So I don't know. Like I said, my own ignorance on this particular Jeep could be the issue, and I'm misdiagnosing it. But based on, like I said, what we saw with the condition of this component, either I was wrong and they just installed a crappy part, or a used part maybe. It shouldn't have been used because we did not get billed for a used part, I can tell you that. So they either installed a used one, or they damaged this one, or maybe the techs took it apart. I don't know. I'm very much speculating here, but the problem is still there and I have to solve it. So let me know what you guys think. Any Chrysler guys out there, am I off in the wrong direction here? Is the quality of these parts fairly common in Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep land? Or am I just kind of splitting hairs, reading between the lines a little bit too deep, and I misdiagnosed the car and it's, you know, a gateway module or something like that? You guys feel free, let me know in the comment section down below. I could use some assistance on this, but I'm gonna double down on this cluster. I've already called Eric, I Do Cars, and he has one, so I'm gonna get another cluster here, and we're gonna plug that other cluster back in the same way this one is, and then we're gonna revisit that battery draw with another unit, and we're gonna see if that seems to be the issue or not. So stay tuned for another follow-up on this thing, because I know you guys wanna know what the deal is just as much as I do. And then if I can prove that that cluster is legit causing this battery draw, I can then go back to the dealership with some extreme prejudice and confidence that they ripped me off and stole my money and did not give us the part that we paid for. So don't jump the gun and start doxing people or anything like that. We don't know what's going on yet, but I am in that information gathering segment of figuring out what's going on with that part that came back from the dealership inside of that Jeep. So that being said, I think I have nothing more to offer you guys at this current point in time. Let me know what you think about this situation. She's still mad. See, that's the same thing she was ranting about the other day when I was working on that Subaru. Same vehicle, when they tried to mark up and then charge her $2,400 for a $1,400 job. They tried to get us. But, so this like a rant continued, I guess, at this point. Anyway, guys, we're hanging up. That's all I got for you on this one. Let me know what you think. Comment section down below. Don't forget that like button where we're down there. And most importantly, you can say it.
Do not forget to have yourself a great day.
Good job.
Bye.
You did it. Bye.